This morning, starting in the beautiful Umbrian town of Orvieto. You can see the cathedral behind me in the mist. Promised to clear up later today, so we should get some good sun. The mist is burning off already. Walking from here to Bolsena along an old route involving a miracle. But more about that later. Done the first kilometre and a half, 2 kilometres out of Orvieto, which on an ordinary day you would be able to see rising majestically on its cliffs behind me, but as you can see we're still in the fog. The first part of the walk is, you can just see there, the first part of the walk is on roads. This last section has been a little bit busy, not particularly safe feeling, no pavements and virtually no verge to walk on as well. But now we're about to start the steep uphill section that will get us, technically get us the beautiful views of Orvieto. The story of the miracle of Bolsena. Apparently, in 1263, Peter of Prague, German priest, was travelling down to Rome on pilgrimage, and during Mass in Bolsena, at the altar of Santa Caterina, the host started to bleed. And given that he was having doubts about his faith, he took this as a sign that he should renew his faith. It was regarded as a miracle at the time, so they set off and walked the route that I'm walking today between Bolsena and Orvieto, carrying the blood-stained corporeal, which is the cloth that goes over the top of a chalice. And Pope Urban IV, who was in residence at Orvieto at the time, was apparently so moved by this that he decided to institute the Feast of Corpus Christi. That's the story anyway. And we've arrived at the Sasso Tagliato, the cut rock, which is part of our story. The legend goes that this rock miraculously split into two to allow the passage of the procession as it was bearing the bloodstained cloth to Orvieto Cathedral. We've done the majority of the climb for today now, so I'm looking forward to a little bit more, firstly shade, and also just a little bit more level walking. It's been about 200 plus meters upwards in about 2 kilometers, so it's been a pretty steep hike so far. This has been such a peaceful walk the last sort of 15 minutes. We're in the woodlands, beautiful woodland path, trees arching over. The fog is burning off, so we're getting some beautiful sunlight now. And I haven't seen a soul. All you can hear are the sounds of the animals in the woodland, birds in the trees, and me walking. It's a lovely walk, but I'm clearly the only water source for the flies for about 20 miles around because they're relentless. But the walk's kind of making up for it at the moment. So we've got an interesting one here. Technically the path goes up here, but I've just walked up it for about 20 meters and it's completely overgrown. It is virtually impassable. I mean, you could, but you just spend so long sort of tree bashing and sort of trying to make a path that it's not worth it. So I'm actually going to continue in this direction, follow another path which does a big loop around what looks like a farm, and it does reconnect with the path, but I think ultimately it's one of those slightly more sensible decisions to avoid spending an awful lot of time not getting very far very quickly. So back now on the official route, which basically is exactly the same road that I've just walked on. So not much difference there. I did see the end of the official route, the bit that I didn't walk, and it looked like a fairly ordinary path, so I'm not actually sure how far the roughness in the path existed for, but I tried for about 20-30 meters before coming back, so again, I think I made the right decision. And, gonna have a little bit of a stop, probably in about 10-15 minutes. Have some snacks, a bit of a sit down. I can find somewhere without the flies, and tell you some more of the story. Found a place to sit, surrounded by hazelnut trees. Just had a break. Been sitting for about 10 minutes. Had something to drink, had something to eat. Gonna have a bit of a snack in a minute, just get some energy, and then we'll be off again. We're about halfway through the walk today, and we're starting to get the clouds coming in, so maybe the forecast showers will happen earlier than expected. So back to our story. We have the priest. We have the miracle, we have the corporeal, the cloth with the blood on it, being carried to Orvieto Cathedral, and we have Urban IV instituting the feast of Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. The problem is, there is no contemporary evidence for anything that links the two events. The story of the miracle is set during the Pope's lifetime, Urban IV, but nowhere in any of the documents recounting his life, including one that is a very detailed account of his life or his time in Orvieto, do they mention it. In fact, we need to go about 80 years later, after the events are supposed to have taken place, to find any reference to the events related to a miracle, and even then, they don't say which miracle it's related to. So maybe the events did trigger the whole feast of Corpus Christi, but then again, maybe they didn't. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Who knows? Out of the woods and into the sun, so that's come on, but in not too long we should actually have a little bit of road walking, and then in probably about 30 minutes or so we should get our first view of Bolsena and its lake. Looking forward to that. Looking back across the beautiful Umbrian countryside, it really is a stunning day today and an amazing walk. A little bit of road walking, but fortunately we're going to come off the main road very quickly, so shouldn't be too bad. finished the road walking. It was about a kilometre in the end. Not my favourite part of the walk. The road itself is not particularly busy, but it does seem to be a bit of a rat run for trucks. So it was a little bit sort of hair-raising every so often when they went whizzing past. Just the most beautiful woodland to walk through. This really is quite spectacular. I love the way the light comes through when you have trees arching over a path like this. It's fantastic. So what you can see here are the coverings over the entrances to a series of Etruscan tombs. You can go in, but the entrance is incredibly steep. Had a lot of rain yesterday as well in this area, and I also don't have a torch, and there's not really much point going in to basically see nothing. But if you do this walk and you plan ahead and bring a torch with you, then you can go in and do a little bit of exploration, as long as you're careful. They are steep and slippery. Walking up to the border between Umbria and Lazio, and walking through a field that has been left to go wild. Just butterflies everywhere. It's incredible. And if you stop, the sound that you hear is just the sound of the insects, the buzzing and the humming of the bees and the flying insects. It really is quite incredible. Just shows what happens when you let nature take over. So literally in about 5 seconds, crossing from Umbria to Lazio. Here we go, and suddenly we're in open fields again. How nice of them to mark the border like that. And there, in the distance, just our first view, first glimpse of Lago di Bolsena. So we're getting there. Should be there in about an hour or so. Coming to the last couple of kilometres on the walk, thought I'd give you my thoughts on the track, on the experience. Overall, thoroughly enjoyable. It's a beautiful walk. It takes you through some incredible countryside, some beautiful farmland. And apart from the road walking, which is not a super huge amount, it's mostly forest tracks, woodland tracks, which I can see are used occasionally by vehicles, but not very often. You can tell by the way the path is when you're walking that it's not a well-trodden route, but that's actually fine. That's good with me. At the beginning, it's a bit steep. You've got a good hefty start to the walk, and at the end as well when you're going down into Bolsena, which I'm going to be starting shortly. It's also pretty steep, so it doesn't matter whether you start it from Bolsena or start it from Orvieto, you're always going to be starting with a bit of a steep uphill. But if you find yourself in this part of Italy and you fancy a walk, can absolutely recommend it. Absolutely stunning walk. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and would happily do it again. And there we have it. The next view of the lake. Getting closer. It's just stunning. Absolutely beautiful. little bit more road walking. Once again, not much of a pavement. The road doesn't seem very busy, and I'm only on it for a couple of 100 metres, so I should be descending soon on what is a private road that should bring me out right at the top end of Bolsena. So we're probably in the last 15-20 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of the walk, and a glorious afternoon it is as well. And here we are, just arrived in Bolsena, just the last couple of meters. And there we have it, the Church of Santa Caterina, the start of the story where Peter of Prague saw the blood from the host. And this is the end of the walk. Fabulous walk this has been.